Hello and welcome. I'm Nitin Gokhale and you are on StratNews Global. What is mountain warfare? Does the mountain warfare mean the old style light charge of the light brigade that used to happen in the early 19th or the 20th century? Or is it something different? Does mountain warfare differ from the plains? Of course it does. But what does it entail? How does an attacker gain advantage in mountains? Does the defender have an advantage? All that needs to be discussed in the context of what is happening around the line of actual control between India and China. As all of you are aware, the northern frontiers of India are all along what is called super high altitude areas, from Arunachal Pradesh in the east to Ladakh in the west and Sikkim and Uttarakhand in between. And therefore, I have with me somebody who is eminently qualified to discuss about mountain warfare. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who was the first man, as many of you will be aware, to climb to the heights of Siachen in April 1984 as a young captain. And throughout his life, he in fact has spent most of his service life of nearly 40 years in the mountains as brigade commander in Tawang, as divisional commander in another mountain division in East Arunachal Pradesh, and then chief of staff in Ladakh and other postings in between. General Kulkarni, thank you very much and welcome to this program.
Thank you, Nitin.
In fact, the purpose of this program is to understand from you especially the very fact that mountains and super high altitude areas like Ladakh or Arunachal Pradesh, how does warfare differ from, say, the plains of Punjab or Rajasthan? And of course, then go forward discussing, does a defender have an advantage or an attacker has an advantage? So your first thoughts when I ask you, how does mountain warfare differ?
See, mountains favor the defender.
There you
That's the first thing. The second thing is whoever occupies dominating heights, he is actually in control of the battle. Because it's extremely difficult firstly to get to the heights, and then if you are entrenched as a defender on heights, and especially along the LAC or even the LOC that we have, and the kind of weather we have, because invariably you find that most of the time the weather would be bad in super high altitudes, foggy, misty, blizzardous weather, the visibility is very, very poor. So in these kind of circumstances, when you're occupying heights, you're in a dominating position and entrenched, as I said. And that entrenchment involves having your minefields around you, you have your barbed wire around you. So you know exactly that your early warning elements are able to tell you that there is a possibility of someone coming to you. So you have various means of getting to know that. We'll not discuss those things. Right?
Sure.
But now imagine someone staying on the 30th floor and someone attempting to go to the 30th floor from ground floor. How difficult it would be for anybody. And if buildings are actually vertical, you have lifts to go or you have stairs to go, or somebody might drop you from the top, rappel down and come down.
Yeah.
So in these kind of heights, it's not so easy, because if you want to rappel down your troops, someone's already entrenched on that height. So the helicopters are not going to go uncaged, they all will be shot down. So there's no way. Now you go to climb up. So if you have to climb up a hill feature, your heads are down. So if your head is down and you're being watched by someone who's absolutely in full control, he's breathing normal and you're breathless. As it is in mountains, it's very difficult because breathing is one rarefied atmosphere.
That's right.
Then if you've not been able to sleep well, so you have problems of insomnia. If you have not been able to eat well, that is yet another problem.
And we are talking about altitudes
super high
15,000 plus.
Yeah, when you're talking,
plus.
I would say all these kind of problems with your body. You'd start noticing after 9,000, depending upon how well acclimatized you are.
That's right.
And everybody, it isn't that someone is very tough looking that is better off. It's nothing to do like that. Just that because he's young, he can run. No, you
have to get acclimatized.
Older people better acclimatized because he's able to breathe well.
Sure.
So in these kind of areas, it's extremely important that you are acclimatized well.
Right. So,
And second,
you started off by saying defender has the advantage. So let me take an example from your own experience. When you went to Billafondla on 13th April 1984 and took those 30 people up there, and when the first attack was attempted by the Pakistanis in Siachen, right now we're talking about Siachen, and that came in mid-June sometime, if I remember correctly.
23rd of June.
23rd of June, okay, last week of June. And you had the advantage of your sentry, who was part of the ISR, the Intelligence Surveillance Reconnaissance. Tell us a bit about that and why that was, that is important to illustrate the importance of being entrenched.
Let's take Siachen. Now, Siachen is actually being protected by the Saltoro ridgeline.
That's
now,
right.
the Saltoro ridgeline, between 18,000 and going up to Saltoro Kangri, up to 23 and 24,000,
Sure.
is a very formidable ridgeline, which is defending the Siachen glacier. So when Pakistanis talk of Siachen, they're nowhere near Siachen.
Exactly.
They're far beyond the Saltoro ridgeline.
Yes.
So in 1984, when we occupied the passes, because when you say Billafondla,
La is a pass.
So we occupied Siala, we occupied Billafondla, we occupied Gyeongla. So these three routes of entry into Siachen, which is easier because invariably you enter cross the ridgeline to the passes. So once you have occupied those passes, the Pakistanis now are attempting to dislodge us from those passes to find an entry into Saltoro ridgeline and then come on to Siachen. You have seen from 84, now it's 2020, they have not been able to dislodge anybody from there. It's extremely difficult.
Sure.
Extremely difficult. You can attempt, even Musharraf as an SSG brigade commander, that he would be there and wanting to assault these Billafondlas. Primarily Billafondla. Siala is extremely far more difficult to assault. Right. But Billafondla, he couldn't succeed. Right. So much so that Bana won a Paramveer Chakra, defending Billafondla and the Bana top.
Yeah.
So this is what mountains are. So as I said, mountains favor the defender.
Correct.
And in altitudes like these, in a dominating heights, entrenched is virtually impossible. I won't say it's almost virtually impossible for the defender to be dislodged. And if you dislodge, then you know what happened in Kargil.
Right.
The kind of casualties one has to suffer.
That's right.
And again, at a time when you can have a direct firing artillery, artillery played a big role in Kargil. Air played a big role in Kargil. And in these kind of circumstances, it's different. But along the LAC, let's take what we are, say, south of Pangong Tso, where the Chinese wanted to establish a foothold on south of Pangong. Now you have heights as high as Mount Helmet Top, Black Top, Magar Hill, Gurung Hill, Richingla. It's virtually impossible now. That's why the Chinese, probably, I feel, they have realized that talks are the only way forward because they have lost the first battle.
Right.
They have
of the heights. The race to the heights have been won in South Pangong Tso.
It's a total failure ab initio in Chushul. Because if you are occupying the dominating heights for the mechanized forces to break out
in Spangur Gap,
it's impossible. Where, how would he?
You can pick them out.
Absolutely. Pick, choose and kill. And the kind of weaponry that you have today is not so easy for anybody to be able to, break through like this. And bad weather. Bad weather is, it can be used by both sides. The defender also uses the bad weather. And he is also in a disadvantageous position in bad weather. The attacker uses that bad weather to come as close as he can to the defender. But if you have an early warning element, it's...
So, but let's take, let's say, a battalion defended area, for instance. I've read it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that in the normal planes, it's the attacker has to have advantage of, at least thrice the size of the defender. The force has to be thrice the size of the defender to gain some advantage. If you go to a little higher, then it may be 1:9 or something, in say Kargil or other places. But in super high altitudes like Chushul or even Galwan or going beyond, you need maybe 10 or 12 times the force of a defender. So if you have let's take a hypothetical example. One battalion is defending an area of say 2 kilometers wide, somewhere out in the open, because Ladakh is like that, that topography is like that. What will it take for an attacker to evict, and how much casualties an attacker will take? Eventually maybe they'll get defeated, the battalion, but the casualty attrition rate will be much higher, isn't it?
Much. Nitin, I think you've done a good study. I must say that. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. The number of troops at super high altitude, though, especially in areas like Ladakh, where there's not a single tree, it's absolutely barren. So you have nothing but rocks, stones, and ice.
Yes.
That's all that you will have over there. Definitely, the ratio would be much, much more. Definitely more than 9, can go even as high as 12. And therefore, if it's, say, 1,000 occupying, you can imagine between 9 and 12,000 are the kind of troops that you would require to actually dislodge, and presuming that 1,000 is not increasing.
Right.
It's fixed 1,000 and
Correct. And no reinforcement is coming in.
If the 1,000 are also being reinforced for the casualty that they're suffering, it's virtually impossible for the attacker to do it. To establish a foothold on mountains is what you require.
Right.
And if you don't allow him to establish a foothold, I think there's no way. He has to retreat.
When these kind of battles take place, obviously there is a minefield in front of the battalion. There is also artillery.
Absolutely, minefield, rightly said, artillery, so much of airburst, you'll be having air. So it's not easy. It's equally difficult, but it's more difficult and rather much, much more difficult for the attacker and much easier for the defender. Imagine you're sitting and you're waiting for him to come.
Right.
You're breathing well. You can also munch some chocolates in between and keep your caloric values going.
Sure.
But the chap who's attacking has come from somewhere. He is now going to assault up. He's breathless. He's carrying load at that height of 16,000, 18,000 and wanting to assault at 18 plus.
True.
It's not easy.
So the question is then, if the Chinese are assuming that they have brought in, say, 2 divisions to range against Indian deployment in Ladakh now as we see, and most of it is, we are told, they are mechanized divisions, 3 and 4, or 4 and 6.
Absolutely.
4 and 6 Chinese mechanized divisions have come. So what is their intention? I mean, obviously they would know that India, if it only puts 2 divisions opposite these 2 divisions of the Chinese, then it's a stalemate. It's not something that they could have just had a cakewalk in that. So what do you think? I mean, when you assess it?
See, Nitin, let's put it this way. Firstly, we are no longer 62 and a pushover army. That's the first thing.
Right.
And secondly, if it's a mirror image of deployment, presuming that whatever the number of troops that they have, you also have. So, ab initio should give us a feeling that it's more coercion and not confrontation. He doesn't want to confront, but he's willing to probe and he's willing to see where the things are a little weak, where he can be in strength at all places. At some places, you're bound to be a little weak. Most of the places you can't have strength, and you can employ more. And by the time you shift troops from one place to the other place, it will take time. So you have to be cautious, you have to be careful, you have to be vigilant. There's no denying the fact. But yes, what you just said, the kind of deployment he has and the kind of troops that he has been able to muster opposite us and the kind of deployment that we have and the kind of troops that we've been able to mobilize and muster, it's coercion and not confrontation. Because if what we just discussed, if he needs even 6 times more, I'll say 6 times more, than if he's mobilized 1 lakh, then he needs 6 lakhs.
Correct.
That is first.
That's right.
Secondly, employment of those troops
is
also, it's just narrow employment.
Absolutely.
You can't, even if he comes along Galwan Valley, it's just a small valley. That is why it is called a valley. And therefore he's going to confine himself. He's going to be addressed by so many kinds of weapons, including air.
Correct.
It is not going to be easy. So, seeing his deployment, seeing the kind of troops he's employed, is coercion to my understanding. Definitely not confrontation, because he cannot confront. He's also bound to get unbalanced. He cannot be balanced everywhere. He will get unbalanced.
Yes.
We will also get unbalanced.
Yes. So let's look at even what the defender needs to do. I mean, let's assume that now we've occupied, not assume, we have Indian troops have occupied Magar Hill, Gurung Hill, Richenla, all that. But that doesn't end the planning, I guess. They need to do certain things to be able to defend the area, and I mean, they are out in the open. What should the defender be doing? When we saw the old World War I kind of warfare, where trenches.
It's a trench warfare.
Trench warfare.
Trench warfare. There's no denying the fact. You have to dig it down. You have to make sure that you protect yourself from airburst. and you protect yourself from heavy artillery.
Right.
You protect yourself from heavy rockets in air also. So the Chinese, at this point of time, if the deployment is what it is, if they don't increase, they would like to soften the target before they can do anything.
Correct.
But if you're occupying dominating heights and you are entrenched, there's no question. And I don't think that the Chinese are keen on confrontation. Probably, my reading would be that the Chinese have just opened a front to see between the two fronts of the South China Sea and the Eastern Ladakh, or for that matter, anywhere along the Himalayas, wherever they would want to do it, to see what can be done. If they can't achieve the main aim, can they, get onto a secondary aim of seeing if something could be done in Eastern Ladakh, and if Indians are caught, off guard, then yes, it would have been difficult.
Correct.
But the very fact that we were able to mobilize ourselves well, we were able to defend ourselves well, and the way we were able to react so fast is indicative that they probably felt that it's not worth the chance that to take. And Chinese as a nation, who, when they call themselves at the center of the universe, they would like to suffer a humiliation.
Right.
And when most of the world thinks that in 79 they suffered with Vietnam, so another humiliation, they would
not go down,
they would rather avoid it. Rather avoid it.
So they normally want to, these are the two things that they talk about the Chinese philosophy. One is winning without fighting, and two, the fact that if coercion can get them what they want, then they would rather prefer this rather than bloodshed.
Absolutely, Nitin. It's the basic Sun Tzu principle that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without a fight.
Right.
That's what Sun Tzu said, and this is what they are also trying to do. But and using all kinds of warfare,
right?
Information warfare, psychological warfare, all kinds,
legal
digitized
warfare.
This thing. He would do everything, whatever he can, to make sure that he at least gets a political victory, if not a military victory. And to get all of this, he has a political aim. He has a military aim. He wouldn't want to just come out of his barracks and start charging. A nation like China, hopefully, will be doing like that. And the very fact that if you mobilize, this kind of mobilization the Chinese have been able to do because the infrastructure has come up.
Right.
Their infrastructure on their side, the kind of roads have come up, and now they've even attempted using air. The helicopters they've been able to develop, which are flying at such high altitude.
Right.
So after all that, now this is probably just to put pressure on India that we must toe their line.
Right.
And to be able to toe their line is all this is going on. The information warfare. You find Global Times saying all kinds of things that you suffer 5 times more humiliation than what you have suffered in 62. And you don't know what we are capable of. And that Xi Jinping is almost like Mao. The power flows from the barrel of the gun. So all these kind of talks that emanate are indicative that he is not fully prepared and he doesn't want to take us on head on. And he also, and especially after Galwan, I think Galwan probably, I feel, is a turning point because he did what he did, premeditated. Baseball bats, iron rods, barbed wire, nails, whatever he had. He managed to kill the Sioux. And after that, what happened? No orders came from anywhere.
No.
So it was absolute raw fight that took place between the two sides. And it was free for all. In that free for all, we lost 20 in all. But they have lost many more. So that is the first, I think they got a feel of what the Indian
heat
can do.
The heat.
And
they felt the heat.
They felt the heat of the Indian raw blood. And that probably gave them a feeling that it's not worth it. If these troops can react without getting orders and none of them have opened fire, and this is what it has resulted in, so it's much better to lie low. And after that, on the 23rd of June, when that meeting took place between the discussions or the talks that took place between Wang and our Foreign Minister, and probably the only place where he has lessened the number of troops or pulled back is Galwan. Nowhere else is he done that. And again, the 29th and the 30th again is indicative of the kind of, I would again say,
turning the tables
reaction
against them,
to the kind of provocative military movement being done And then we're getting to know of it through our surveillance and
local ISR, tactical ISR working.
And then reacting. That means dominating height. The race for that height is from both the sides.
Right.
And then you beat them even by 1 hour or 2 hours and are occupied.
Sure.
They've lost it.
Correct.
And that also gives an indication that the troops on the Indian side are fully acclimatized, are physically fit, are able to react, and they are ready at any point of time.
I was coming to that, in fact, acclimatization. I believe now India has also deployed above the Finger 4 ridge line on the north bank of the Pangong Tso. And now suddenly that advantage or whatever the deployment that the Chinese had on the ridge line of Finger 4 has gone. Which means the acclimatization and the fitness has worked on the Indian side. And in any case, you've been through it completely. Just give us an idea about the acclimatization stages that we speak about in this super high altitude.
Our troops are battle-hardened. Right. And we follow a proper acclimatization schedule of the first stage, the second stage, the third stage. And the first stage, we're going for 6 days, then again add on another 3 days, then add on another 3 days to get to the super high altitude. And rest on the first day, just walk.
So this is what, 9,000 feet, 12,000 feet, 15,000
9,000, and then 12,000, and then 14,000 and beyond.
And above.
So this kind of an acclimatization when the troops are going through, they know it. And the ones who can't adjust for whatever the reason is, they are not deployed on.
Right.
So most of them, I would say 97 to 98% of the troops
manage to acclimatize.
Proper acclimatization schedule.
Right.
Like they say, no, don't be a Gama in the land of Lama. So if you are understanding what the terrain is and you know what you're going to be doing, then you're fully prepared. And in those circumstances, I think we are a little more battle-hardened. And we are all along occupying either the LAC or the LOC. And if you are occupying even the LOC at places, it's very, very tough. Altitude-wise. LAC in any case is tough. Altitude-wise. So the battle hardening and preparation is much more on the Indian side than it may be on the Chinese side. Because whatever I've seen of the Chinese coming from the rear, being driven down in centrally heated vehicles, and then getting down, and then just discuss for some time. And then go back.
They are never forward deployed for so long.
Nitin, I must tell you a very interesting incident at Bumla.
In
Arunachal Pradesh. The Chinese came and it was very cold. It was October. It was actually cold. And I was in my normal SD trying to, for the battle border personnel meeting to take place. So one of the officers came and just lifted my my jacket. And he said, what happened? No, I want to see what are you wearing inside.
I know. In fact, I've been to one of those border personnel meeting with you.
I said, he said, it's so cold and you're standing
like this.
What is it that you're wearing?
So, acclimatization.
Then I realized it. Because we are, got acclimatized. So we can sort of understand the variation of temperature and be ready for it. He's probably come from a centrally heated
and suddenly he's out in the open.
Into the vehicle.
Out in the open.
And then he came straight there. So obviously, once he comes out of the vehicle, for an hour or so, he's going to feel miserable.
Absolutely.
And that is where I could take out
I think the advantage is there. I remember, I think if you remember, I was with you on one of those border personnel meetings in 2007 October.
Absolutely, 2007 October.
Around the same time when the winter just starts setting in. So one final question. Winter is brutal in these altitudes and of course the topography. What is the main challenge that winter brings in for troops on either side? What would you think would be the main challenges?
It's logistics. Logistics is the most important thing. Firstly, the troops have to be kept heated. So even if you, obviously at all those places, you may not have electricity. Even if you have generators, you might not want to use them for all. So Bukhari is something which is time tested. So kerosene, so you have to have huge quantity of kerosene to be done. Then logistics for everything. That means tin food, that is the most important thing. Clothing, very important. Then medical, because somebody might, suffer from insomnia, possibly, or frostbite, chilblain. There's some start of a HAPO that he might develop. So you require...
HAPO is high altitude
pulmonary edema. Water gets into the lungs, so to prevent those kind of things. So headache. Headache is a very common thing over there. Exposure to winter, suddenly you feel cold.
And the wind chill factor is very high.
That is the worst part. The wind chill factor is the worst part. I must tell you, I had gone to Razangla and at Chushul, the Razangla
base,
Memorial
yes.
there. So I went there to pay respects. 13 Kumau,
Yes.
I thought, since I'm
Charlie Company.
Yeah, I went to, and there were people there. I thought I was fully acclimatized and everything. Precisely in 15 minutes, I was not able to open my mouth to say, because whatever, however hard you may be, you're acclimatized, but the wind chill factor was so bad that you want to say it.
Your throat gets dry.
Throat gets dry and you start.
You get disoriented.
You can't, the words don't come out of your mouth.
Right.
It's so difficult to speak.
Correct.
So that is where it happens. So logistics is the basic thing. So you're not only fighting the enemy, you're also fighting the nature.
Absolutely.
So it's very, very difficult. But not all said and done. Our troops are used to it. That's a very big plus point.
Absolutely.
That we have. And our troops are good. They can adjust, adapt to this kind of an environment.
Absolutely.
That's a very good point. But whatever it be, after all, human bodies.
It's unpredictable, and of course to cater to so the quantum of troops which has increased, obviously from Indian side also, is going to be a major challenge.
Another thing, Nitin, I must tell you, our troops invariably don't complain.
Right.
And that's also bad.
Yes.
Because if he's suffering from something, it's better to tell your buddy that I'm not feeling well or I'm feeling breathless.
But
he can be quickly evacuated and be taken care of.
Correct.
But he thinks probably somebody might think I'm a weak chap and that is another bad thing. So we do tell the troops that don't think that everybody will fit at all times. So should you not feel good or you want some medical help, ask for it. Say so. Then you will be quickly evacuated. So rather than going down and getting evacuated once and for all, you will
come back.
You'll come back within no time.
Right.
So it is much better to share your problems with your buddy.
That's
so
right.
Buddy is very, very important.
And doctors are very important here.
They are the lifeline. Without doctors, it's impossible.
Exactly.
It's impossible. Nursing assistants, doctors, a bit of your own knowledge. But again, our knowledge mustn't be, take a wrong medicine or something. It's so much better to consult them.
Consult a doctor,
And, definitely.
So in that respect, I think Indian Army has got an excellent system of ops logistics, operations logistics,
Our doctors are very
and doctors and the food, the tentage, everything is, I think, is taken care
in
of.
Siachen, sometimes I might have a 90-day tenure.
Right.
The poor doctor might just go after another 90 days.
Yeah, exactly.
A break of 6 months and go another 90
Absolutely,
days.
yeah, that's right.
Doctors are really hard-pressed.
So
Our doctors are very good.
Yeah, we couldn't have had a better person than you to understand the difficulties of mountain warfare and the difficulty of logistics. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Nitin.
And the insights that you've given us. In fact, that's all we have in this program. We'll come back with more such insights from veterans and experienced people. But until the next time, it's goodbye.